In this video, I'll provide a brief introduction to and exploration of Figma Make. I've been in conversation with Figma Make to make this mood board maker application that I call Moodzio. You can play with the current version of Moodzio at moodzio.com, and you'll notice that this forwards to Figma Sites. That's because you can publish your Figma Make applications directly to Figma Sites. I mentioned being in conversation with Figma Make because you could use this chat window to prompt it to add features or make changes. Using the chat interface, you can create functional prototypes, web apps, interactive user interfaces, and more. But beyond just prompting via chat, you can import files into Figma Make, including pasting frames from Figma Design or attaching design files in order to provide context. It's a pretty cool way to explore ideas, and as you'll see, I'm currently on version 190 of this app. Because I think to use Make effectively, you have to have an extended conversation where you iteratively add features or make changes as you work your way to a more polished and fully functional application. In this application, I can explore typography, including browsing out from Google Fonts, for example, to set and arrange type. Maybe I want that header to be light. I can set different styles for different pieces. And once I have something I like, I can save that out to my mood board. And when I go to the mood board, it's rendered here where I can arrange it in different ways. I can actually bring this out to be 12 columns, for example, go all the way across. I can also explore color and color palettes that are here, editing these palettes to adjust maybe the hue or saturation or brightness in different ways, and then saving those palettes out to my mood board. I also can connect with APIs through Figma Make. We can actually use APIs. So in this case, I'm using an API to browse Unsplash images for styles, and I'll go ahead and search party, where I might be able to find this cool sort of balloon or sort of party atmosphere that I'm interested in, and I'll go ahead and save that out to my mood board. When I click on my mood board, you can see all of my saved elements here. And one of the things that's awesome is you can also build apps with real data. In other words, I'm connecting to a database to actually save this out to the cloud. In order to do that, I'll need to log in. So I can log into my account. And once logged in, I could sort of rename this in some sort of way. I'll just call it my mood, and then save this to the cloud. It would save this file out with cloud storage, and I'd be able to load up any of the mood boards I have saved to the cloud. So I've got these different ones on here, and I could take a look at what some of the other files that I've played with look like and readjust them, etc. One of the things that's cool about this too is you can actually view info on all of the different elements, such as the CSS that is driving the type formatting, what font, what size, letter spacing, etc. I can also sort of browse back out to the images that I found on Unsplash. And so I'll show that particular image that opened up. So that's pretty interesting. Or if I have a gradient, for example, I could, figure out the CSS for applying that gradient into a website. There's a lot I can do with this, and all of it was built in conversation with Figma Make. The homepage design for this, I actually designed in Figma Design. And I was able to take this design file, and at that time I was calling it a creative investigation engine, if you will. And I was able to take that design file and simply apply it by importing into Figma Make to make the homepage design. The actual functionality of all of the different features through this for color, iconography, exploration, brand attributes, etc. I added iteratively via prompts in chat. One of the things that's pretty cool is you can go back through different versions of this. So I'm on version 190, but in theory, I could go back to earlier versions. So it auto names these versions with the basic change, and some of these are trying to fix errors and some of the different things that I'm trying to do. expanding the color palette limit because it was limited, etc. So I have all these versions where I was creating this, and I can actually go all the way back to version 1 to see what this looked like at the very beginning if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and do that. After my first initial prompt, I did get an interactive mood board. It didn't have all the features that are here, but we can take a look at what that looks like. And so the very first one that I had looked like this, and it had explorations for typography, color, and imagery. In theory, I could restore to this very first version and go from there. But I don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and stop previewing this version and return back to version 190 that I'm on now. So if you want to get started in Figma Make, you can always just open a new file or tab here and click on Make, and you'll notice that it will give you a little prompt saying, hey, describe your idea or attach a design to guide the result. And you can give it a prompt. There's a bunch of examples that you can explore and riff from of the types of things that you can build, so I encourage you to try it out. Returning back to my current application, I have some ideas on how I might want to change this. Under the color, as I adjust color palettes, one of the things that I can do with these color palettes is explore different gradients based on the current colors. When I roll over, I can edit those and choose different colors from the color palette as part of the exploration, and then save those back to my mood board or simply click Done to see what it looks like. But this editor seems a little limited to me, and I think I'd like to be able to maybe change the angle of the gradient, or maybe also use radial gradients rather than just linear. So in order to enable this, I could prompt that in Figma Make. I've gone ahead and written a prompt that I've tried to make as specific as possible, and that's one thing that you have to do. And so I'm trying to give Figma Make some context of what I want to change and how I want to change it. So where is that? I say on the color page, when users edit a gradient exploration, which is what I had called this right here, and they choose to edit that gradient, the options are limited. I'm asking it to add options to change the angle of the gradient, use radial gradients, or a color stop in the middle of the starting and ending colors. Give the user the interactive ability to edit these gradients and see the result in the gradient preview. So this is what I'd like it to do. I'm trying to be as descriptive as possible. And then I could just see whether or not it can actually implement these changes. It doesn't always, but you just have to try. So I'm going to go ahead and go. It takes a little while to happen. Sometimes, depending on the complexity of the prompt, it will take shorter or longer. And so one of the things that's interesting is seeing its reasoning. And it actually helps you make better prompts because you can understand whether or not it understands what you're trying to do. So the very first thing that's going to come back is the reasoning it thinks that it needs to apply. And I like to open that up and actually see what it says. It says the user wants to enhance the gradient editor modal on the color page with the ability to change the gradient angle, option for radial gradients, not just linear, add a middle color stop between the start and end colors, and interactive editing with live preview. That's exactly what I wanted. So it did break down the prompt really effectively. So now it's trying to figure out how to do this. And you'll notice that it's trying to figure out where it has to do it, what it needs to do, and then it's going to start implementing those things. I'm going to pause while it's working. Okay, it took a few minutes for it to actually implement the changes, and as my code has gotten more complex, I have noticed that it's taking longer to make particular edits at different times, but it says that it's added these features, right? The editor now includes the gradient type to toggle between linear and radial, angle controls, a middle color stop, and a live preview. And so we need to test it. So when I roll over, we can see whether or not that's true. And you can see that that gradient preview has new features inside of the modal window, including the ability to look at a radial gradient, which is pretty cool, as well as the ability to change the angle of our gradient and actually get a live preview. This is indeed exactly what I wanted. That's pretty darn cool. Now, the middle color stop, right now it says it's disabled, so I could try and enable that and then add a middle stop. There we go. We can put something in the very middle. The one thing it looks like that I can't really do is adjust where in the middle that is. It's putting it right at the 50% mark. So I could see prompting again to say, hey, let me adjust the location of the middle color stop. And or maybe I don't even want it to be called a stop. I just want it to be called middle color or whatever. So we could make those adjustments to make this work. But if I like this, I should be able to click done and see that show up on my gradient exploration board. I don't see it though. So when I click done, it didn't seem to play back out. So let's try this again. I'm going to go ahead and change the angle, maybe to more of an up and down angle. So I can say 180. I like that it added these easy interactive buttons to change the angle. So we'll try this up and down. And if I click done, the preview here is not updating. So that's one of the edits that I'll have to make. This is what happens. It doesn't always cooperate the first time around, and you might have to alert it to what's going wrong, what hasn't happened. And so that's one thing I'll have to explore. If I hit to enable and then I enable a color stop, I'm going to go ahead and have a middle color stop. I'm curious whether or not this new version with this new angle will also save to my mood board. So I want to try that out to see if that particular gradient would indeed save to my mood board. I'm going to hit done where I don't get the preview, but I can go over to the mood board to see if the new version is there. And sure enough, this version did save, just the preview didn't seem to load. So it's showing me the gradient, and I should be able to like expand that if I want to see it a little bit differently. The other thing that I can do is click to view info about it. It shows me the different color stops as well as how to do the gradient. So it's getting the data correct 180 degrees with 3 different color stops. And I could actually just copy and paste this CSS right into something I'm working on for the web, and it should be able to give me this background as a gradient. And so that's a handy feature. I just need to have it update the gradient preview when we're done. I should mention it's not always as simple and effective as this, although in general I've been able to get more or less what I wanted by giving specific concrete prompts to the chat window and then working iteratively when maybe some of the results aren't what I want. I did get caught in a bit of a doom loop for about, I would say, 40 or 50 versions of this when I was trying to enable the cloud storage and user authentication pieces. That got a little bit complicated, and in the end I had to ask Figma Make for console logs and error tracking, and we had to figure out what was going on. I couldn't really see what was happening behind the scenes or didn't quite understand it, although I am able to view the code. So I could go to the code and actually go through this and look at different pieces of our document to see kind of what is happening. And so I'm going to keep this visually, but all of the code is here, and you can actually edit the code directly. Like I could come on here and make changes to this if you can. And so sometimes I've done that, you know, to make specific changes. The other thing you can do to make changes is you can sort of point and click on stuff, or point and edit. And so, for example, let's say I just wanted the name of something to be a little bit different. I could roll over and click on it, and you'll see that I actually get some fonts, some styles. Do I want this bolded, or do I want it in italic, for example? I could actually apply some different styles. Oops, and it just broke on me. Somehow my point and edit froze it for a minute, and it struggled with that. But one of the things I can do is, for example, is maybe change the name of this. Maybe I want to call it Gradient Explorations in the plural. I could do that by editing that, and then that becomes its own new version at the point once I've done that. So I could change that, or I could discard that change. And so I don't know that I want it to be called that. I'm going to go ahead and discard that change. and it will take that right back off. But I do have this ability to point and edit and be able to change some different pieces of this. So you can actually edit containers and add like borders and things like that around particular containers. Or, if it's text, you can change things like font sizes and colors. And so that's nice that we can actually edit this visually by just pointing at what we want. I'm going to take off the point and edit. I've decided to request these changes of Figma Make for the gradient exploration. I like the changes to the gradient editor, but when the user selects done, the corresponding gradient exploration does not update on the color page. Please fix this. I don't know that I have to use the word please, but I tend to still be polite even to AIs. Also, add the ability for the user to create a customized transition between the colors by allowing them to define the color stop's position using a percentage. Allow the user to position the middle color stop such that it is not always in the middle at 50%, but can be interactively changed between 0 and 100%. And I'm going to write via a slider so that it knows what kind of interaction I want for that. So let's see how well it does. I'll go ahead and pause while it thinks. Its reasoning seems to get what I'm trying to do. It has intuited that I want two things: to make sure that the gradient editor updates the gradient exploration on the color page, and also to define color stop percentages for that middle color so it's not always at 50%. So now it's working its magic to go through this, and once it's done, and you can see as it's going, it's kind of giving me some feedback. And I actually have found this feedback useful in helping me improve prompts back to Figma Make. So I like to kind of read over some of what it's doing and how it's working its own logic. Let's wait till it's done. Okay, it seems to have completed and says that it updated, so that gradient updates now persist, the interactive color stop positioning, and all of those good things. We need to test it out, so I can click on any one of these to edit. I should be able to add a color stop, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to have this green center, and maybe the end stop is going to be light blue. I also can change the color stop position here. So do I want it at 50%, 75%? And so it had the wherewithal to kind of give me some of the same features of the way that the slider worked up here. So I like that it's a similar sort of user interface element here that is being interactively set, and I can get the preview of where I want this to be. So maybe I'll go ahead and put that at that 70% position. Now if I hit done, it should update that. And so right here on the preview, it's showing me that it's actually different than it used to be, and it's got that sort of weighting to it. And I should be able to edit this. Let's say I took that middle color stop and put it way down over at 10% over here or something like that. It's at 13, there it is, 10%. I should be able to hit done and see that edited there. The other thing I should be able to do is save this back to my mood board. I want to make sure that those things work, and you really have to thoroughly test everything. And sure enough, that gradient is showing up here. If I expand this out, we can kind of see how that works. And ideally, when I go to copy this, it's going to have the correct values as well. So it's showing me that it added that 10%. So there we go. Those are our varying gradient values. It does seem to have missed the actual color of the color stop in the gradient export info. It's giving me this, but the 10% piece seems to be missing. So that's a little bit weird in terms of the export info, and I might have to edit that. You do have to test everything that you make in Figma Make. One of the things I want to mention too is that all of this requires AI credits, and so you can check your AI balance here. It looks like I got 1,400 left. In this particular case, if you have an educational plan, you get 3,000 credits a month, so the same as the Pro plan, and then that refreshes every month. And I think they're going to add ways to buy more AI credits. I have been burning through my credits every month as I've been building this app. They keep running out, so keep that in mind. The more complex the features that you're asking for, the more sort of credits they will take. And honestly, I never quite know how many credits it is going to take to add the features that I want. So I just kind of keep an eye on my credits as I go. A couple other cool features of Figma Make is the ability to share with others so that you can collaborate on an application. And then also this ability to publish what you've produced. And what this will do is publish back to Figma Sites. So I can take my site, publish it out to Figma Sites. I'm going to go ahead and tell this to update, and it's going to go ahead and update that. And I know that I actually have to add some fonts apparently to this, but I'm just going to let it update. And some of the new features, once it's done updating and publishing, will be available live at the URL. So now it's published this, and if I return back to the browser, I could go back out to my Moodzio domain forwarder that goes over there to Figma site. And if I might need to do a refresh on this. Otherwise, I could go over to these gradient explorations and see if my new features are there. And sure enough, they're there, where I could add a middle stop into my gradients, and I could change the position of that middle stop to weight this just a little bit, as well as save this back onto my mood boards. Once I'm done, I can switch over to the mood board and kind of take a look at that new gradient that I've added here, as well as some of the different features. But I still need to update this so that the color stop is represented in the export so that users can see the actual color representation for that middle color. So that's an error I still have to fix. Overall, it's really been kind of fun to work with Figma Make, and it's empowering, giving you the ability to actually make applications very quickly. I'm not particularly satisfied with the design, to be honest, and some of the choices that are here are choices that Figma Make made that I would not have made, but I can continue to refine this over time by being in conversation and iteratively updating things. I can also change things by actually copying stuff over. So let's say I was taking a look at this color page and I don't love some of the inconsistency that still here. It's okay. I've got other sort of features of this that I might want to add, like this randomization of color and some of the editing tools that I've got. But one of the things I could do with this is actually copy this design. So once this is copying, it's actually going to take all of those design layers and structures and allow me to paste that into Figma Design. Now, for whatever reason, this is telling me that it's failed to copy to design layers, and maybe there's something on this page that is a little bit more difficult for it to copy. I'm going to try a different page. I have this page for actually styling branding attributes, and so I'll see if potentially it can copy this page. It might be a little simpler than that color page that has gradients and all that kind of stuff in it. So let me try copying this design and seeing if it can copy these files. Once it copies these design layers, I should be able to paste this back into Figma Design. Okay, it says that it's copied to the clipboard, and so I'm not sure why it was failing earlier, but let's go ahead and create a new Figma Design file, open that up, and since this was in the clipboard, I should be able to paste this back, simply Control V or Command V to paste back in to Figma Design. And sure enough, there it is. Here is the interactive mood board website brand attributes page. I can zoom in on this and you'll be able to actually open this up. So we can take a look at the frame that houses all of this. You'll see that it's got the navigation container, and we can dial into all of these components. I can continue to click in and open these things up to get to individual pieces within here. It's all like structured to sort of have, there's my typography and my icon, so I can play around with that. And any of the pieces that are a part of this design, I'd be able to do that with, where if I wanted to like dial in and kind of get into these individual pieces, we can see sort of how it's structured here and take a look at this. And so this gives us some ability to see into the structure and the layers that are coming out of Figma Make. And in theory, what I could do is sort of rearrange and restyle these things, save them back out as a Figma design, and then ask Figma Make to sort of apply my new design back to the to the application. I think it's pretty cool that we have this round trip where we can go from Figma Design back into Figma Make, and then go back from Figma Make back into Figma Design and sort of iteratively work and improve our design. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to Figma Make and this exploration. But really, what you need to do is go over to Figma Make yourself, ask yourself what you want to make, and get started playing.